waiting all morning for this one because there's growing outrage right now after a newspaper in upstate New York publishes the names and addresses of every handgun permit holder, not necessarily owners of guns, in their area. It's the Journal News, and they first published a map on its website on Saturday, and the names were all obtained legally by the paper under the Freedom of Information Act. The map doesn't indicate whether the residents actually own handguns, as I mentioned, only that they're legally able to do so. And the information doesn't pertain to rifles or shotguns, which we've heard so much about in the tragic stories over the last couple of weeks. Those, of course, can be bought without a permit illegally. So we wanted to know, did the newspaper go too far? And I have to say, Joey Jackson's joining us, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, and trial attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland. I didn't see in that last video whether that was either of you two at the range, but I digress. I got more responses when I posed this question out to the internet world than I have on a lot of issues.
Oh, yeah.
Joey, do the people who may claim that there was a breach of their privacy, even though the paper obtained the information legally, have a case?
They have no case whatsoever, all right? Now, this is obviously a major public policy concern in the wake of these shootings, which has devastated the country, right? People are concerned. People have a right to know. What did the paper do? What they did, as you mentioned, Jamie, is they acted through legal channels. They filed a FOIL request. What does that mean? Freedom of Information Law. This was information that the general public could have obtained on their own. The paper obtained it. Finally, Jamie, listen to this. There's a provision within FOIL, right? And it says if the government feels that the request is unduly intrusive or invasive of privacy, it could be denied. It was not denied. It was given to the paper. They published it.
They didn't publish all the information. Some information the government actually did feel wasn't appropriate to release. But let me pose this to you, Rebecca, and this is more of a policy issue than a legal question. One of the people that wrote me back is a friend of mine in Texas who is a former Black Hawk pilot, a female friend of mine, who said, oh, please publish my address. Let the robbers know that I'm well armed and locked and loaded.
Well, that's what she says, and, because she can protect herself. But what about all the citizens who have the absolute legal right to bear arms, who are now basically outed for criminals to come in to attempt to get their firearms? Because on the black market, firearms are extremely profitable. I just think it was irresponsible of the newspaper. What is the good? When we're looking here, we're looking to balance the fair and equitable. What is good? What is the benefit for the newspaper to have written and outed these people? Why? What is the purpose of this?
I think it was just, I would say when you look at it, though, Joey, and you see how many people got permits, I assume their point is that there's too many permits out there.
Oh, absolutely. That's their precise point. But I don't know that these people should be feeling, oh, we're unsafe. They're going to come get my guns. If you publish something in the paper and it shows me where the guns are, I'm going to avoid that address. So I don't know that that's necessarily problematic.
That's what my friend probably was saying, and everyone has the right to protect themselves. Is this a wrongful usage of the constitutional right to bear arms, Rebecca?
That's how I feel. I feel it's a wrongful constitutionally right to bear arms, and also freedom of information goes to the First Amendment, and you're right. If you register for an arm, it can be released. We all know this. We're not saying it was illegal for the paper to obtain the information. What we're saying is it is an irresponsible movement towards really focusing on people. What's the difference if they have the right here to have those guns? But what is the problem? And then just permit.
Look how many. This is basically what their point is. And you know what's interesting when you look at New York City on the left? Maybe there's like 10 people that have permits. Our police commissioner, Ray Kelly, takes that very seriously. Not everybody gets one in New York City. But I think I want to ask you, Joey, because you do a lot of criminal defense work. If a bad guy, and I'm sure all your people are innocent.
They're good.
If a bad guy or girl wants to get a gun, they buy it illegal. These are not the people we're talking about necessarily. Although Adam Lanza's mother, the shooter in the Newtown, Connecticut tragedy, had a number of firearms that she legally obtained.
Absolutely. And you know what? And that was the problem. And then we could get into mental health issues. It's a long story. But ultimately, Jamie, there are constitutional liberties. I understand that. I get that. But if you're going to have a gun or a permit for one, you have to accept the responsibility to not keep it a secret. Other people have the right to know in the community. In any constitutional right, there's a balance, there's a limitation. And I believe the public has a legitimate right to know.
So this doesn't chip away, Rebecca, at the right to bear arms, to have the privacy of it in your home. You can't necessarily carry the firearm. It's a permit to own. It isn't a necessarily concealed weapon permit to carry.
No, exactly. I just think the paper went too far. I don't understand the value, the true value of helping their constituency by just naming and pointing out people who have guns. It almost pointed to them to say, well, they said after the Newtown tragedy, we wanted people to know what their neighbors were doing. Why? Is that an insinuation?
Why do you want to know?
I want to know. I think my community wants to know. I think as a parent, I want to know where where a child is, where my children are, where they're going,
I'll give
houses
you that.
they're with.
I'll give you
and
that.
I think as a responsible person, we would have the right to know and want to know who's bearing arms and who's carrying them, so I can make responsible decisions.
But don't you think lawyers are lining up right now in this area of New York to actually bring lawsuits or at least challenge it to see what the courts would decide, Rebecca? I'd take that case.
Sure, I would too, because at some point, maybe it was more responsible to discuss what safe gun action is in your home, to have safes that only you can access, to understand how to protect your weaponry. Is that more appropriate of an article than, hey, those are the people with some gun permits,
So you're
go
saying
find
give
them, go
tips
get them?
on keeping it locked, under lock and key, high up on a
Why
shelf?
not?
This debate will rage on for a long time. We scratched the surface of it here. Rebecca.
Honestly, I got to go, but it's today's water cooler topic.
No doubt
For
about it.
sure, on whether or not you have a right to know who legally has a gun, when the real issue probably is who has them illegally. Those are the people that we need to keep an eye on. Thanks to both of you,
Pleasure.
Joey Jackson, Rebecca Rose Woodland.
Happy holidays.
Same
Good
to
see
you.
Yeah.
Same to you.
well.
By the way, you look very dapper today.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are beautiful.